4,500 is going to be the gear score requirement that you need in order to enter the easiest Chaos Raid, the Shadow Altar, which is coming out next week. So what I thought I would do today is talk a little bit about what we can do to get ourselves up to 4,500 gear score, starting from the beginning. I'll separate this into a couple of different steps, and I'll also mention this at the start. This is just going to be focusing on how to get to 4,500 gear score. I'm not going to be talking about bonus attributes or perfect gear or anything like that. I really just want to focus, for the people who haven't gotten there already, how to get yourself up to 4,500 gear score so that at the very least you can enter these Chaos Raids. So let's get started, and first of all is you want to improve the quality of the gear or the grade of the gear that you have. And by that I mean, let's open up my character sheet as an example, and you'll see that all the gear that I have right now is epic. If you are just getting into hard mode dungeons or you still have green and blue gear on your character, that is going to be a great way to get a whole bunch of gear score. In fact, a ton of the gear score up to 4,500 is just going to come from replacing a lot of the old gear that you had. And if you find yourself wearing a full set of epic gear like my character has right now, you'll actually have a very, very similar number to the one that's showing on screen right now. 3,382. So already you're getting pretty close to that 4,500 requirement. So if you're running hard mode dungeons, you can end up replacing a lot of the green and blue gear that you have on your character just from running one hard mode dungeon. And it doesn't actually matter which hard mode dungeon you decide to do. We'll just use probably the most commonly run hard mode dungeon as an example, Fire Dragon. And you're going to get everything except 3 pieces of gear all replaced in epics, all from Fire Dragon, and honestly from any of the hard mode dungeons. There's actually double dungeon drops going on this week as well, so this gearing up process is going to be even easier than before. Every single run you're going to get 2 weapons and 2 pieces of armor, and you're also going to get some accessory fragments. You might not get weapon or armor for your class, but if you don't, you can end up dismantling it and then end up picking armor or weapons for your class. So just from running one particular hard mode dungeon, you're going to get everything, including your earrings and your cape, and the only pieces of gear that you're going to be missing are the 3 accessories that do not drop accessory fragments from that hard mode dungeon. So because Fire Dragon drops earrings and capes, you can actually get all epic gear just from doing Fire Dragon runs, except for your necklace, your belt, and your ring. So if you still have green or blue accessories, and you want to replace them with epics, you have a couple of choices. You can either end up running hard mode dungeons that maybe you haven't run before and try to get the accessory fragments, or another really good choice right now because of the price of things is you could take a look at the black market and you can see what the price of bind unequip epics for those accessories are. They're pretty cheap because of the double dungeon drop, and also I think bots are having a pretty big impact on prices as well. And let's just look at rings for example. You'll see that rings are hovering around 750,000 mesos, so if you've saved up a few million mesos and you still have a few pieces of green or blue gear, you can end up replacing with epics for a very, very good price right now. Now to the more advanced players who want to use blue gear in Chaos Raids because it rolled really good bonus attributes, and you can't find a piece of epic gear that replaces the bonus attributes of your blue gear, that's totally fine. Just keep in mind that it is going to mean that you're going to have to do some more work enchanting your gear to make up for that slightly lost gear score. Let's move on to step number 2 now. Now that you've gotten a really large amount of gear score from epic gear, let's talk about how you're going to get the rest of your gear score, and that is going to be from the enchanting process. Now, when it comes to enchanting, you want to be working on 2 different things at the same time. You want to be working on your weapon at the same time that you are working on your armor, and you kind of want to look at these things individually and both at the same time. I know that sounds very weird, but let me explain why. So your weapon is going to be the main source of your gear score. You're going to get a ton of gear score from your weapon, and when you end up enchanting your gear at various enchantment levels, you're going to get a bunch of bonus gear score. Now I have a little list, I'll put it on the left side of the screen right here, and what this shows you is when you end up enchanting epic gear, whether it's weapons or armor, that's the percentage of bonus gear score that you get at different enchantment levels. So just as an example, we have a weapon in my inventory, my very infamous 20 million mistake weapon, and it's enchanted to plus 10. So if you take a look at the gear score of this weapon, it gives a base gear score of 1149, but in parentheses, that 574 is gear score that it gives from the enchantment levels, and it is 50% of the original gear score of the weapon. These numbers are also true for armor, but they only work for epics. The numbers are going to be a little bit different for blue gear and other gear, so don't use these numbers for anything besides epics. So what you want to do is you want to focus on enchanting your weapon and also take a look and see how lucky you can end up getting with your weapon. Because the weapon has the most amount of gear score on your character, you're going to get a huge amount by enchanting it. There's going to be some really, really big milestones. Let's equip my plus 10 weapon, and you'll see that already with the plus 10 weapon, I am at almost 4,000 gear score on this character. Now, as you get to past plus 10, you'll see that these bonus numbers go up a lot. Plus 10 will give you plus 50%, but 5 enhancement levels later, very difficult to do. But if you do manage to get there, the bonus will jump from plus 50% all the way to plus 200%. So when you do enchant your weapon past plus 10, you're going to start to notice that not only is your character going to get a lot more powerful, but you're going to get a lot of extra gear score points as well. So plus 10 with all epic gear and none of your epic armor enchanted, you'll find yourself very similar to the gear score number that I have, 3,956. If you enchant your weapon and you get to plus 11, you're going to find yourself at around 4,100 gear score, so you'll still be short by about 400 points. If you get yourself to a plus 12 weapon, again with none of the armor enchanted at all, you'll be at about 4,350 gear score, which means you'll be about 150 gear score points short of being able to enter the Chaos Raid Shadow Altar without any of your armor enchanted. And if you do find yourself extremely lucky and get to plus 13, you'll be at 4,650 gear score, so you'll have already met the 4,500 requirement, and you won't have to enchant any of your armor to get gear score points if you don't want to. So if you find yourself at plus 13 or higher, you can kind of enchant your armor in your own way. You can either do it for other content, Dark Descent, but you won't have to actually look at enchanting your armor just to increase your gear score points. Now, unfortunately, it's a lot easier said than done. Getting your weapon to plus 13 is not easy to do, and most of us probably aren't quite there yet. So if your weapon is not quite there yet, you're going to find yourself below 4,500 gear score, and at that point, what you're going to want to do is take a look at enchanting your armor. And when you're enchanting your armor, what we are doing in this video is we are just trying to enchant our armor so that we can get to 4,500 gear score to enter the Shadow Altar. We're not looking to enchant it for stats. We're not looking to enchant it for things like Dark Descent. We just want to get ourselves 4,500 gear score so that we can enter the Shadow Altar. So if we take a weapon, let's just say plus 12, we're going to be 150 gear score points short. When you end up enchanting your armor just for the purposes of increasing your gear score for a requirement, there's a couple of really important things that you want to look at. And first of all, it's going to be the gear score that that piece of armor has, because the higher gear score that that piece of armor has, the more that it's going to cost in terms of resources to enchant it. So if I go to the enchantment menu and I go to the piece of armor that has the highest gear score, which is actually going to be the top, 367, you'll see that it ends up taking quite a bit of resources to enchant, 360 onyx. I know I have 300,000, I don't want to talk about it. Then we have the pants, which have a tiny bit less gear score at 344, but they also cost 360 onyx. We jump down to the hat, which has a bit less gear score at 241, and this takes less onyx crystals in order to enchant now. And finally, we have the gloves and the boots, which have a gear score of 68, but they are also going to cost the least amount of resources in order to enchant. So the lower the gear score, the lower amount of resources that it takes to enchant, but unfortunately, the bonus gear score that you get from armor is going to be based off of the original gear score that that piece of gear has. So let's go back to my inventory and let's just pretend that we end up enchanting a couple of pieces of armor to plus 10. If I enchant my chest to plus 10, it's going to cost more resources, but it's going to give me a bonus of 50% of the gear score of this chest armor. So it'll give me 183 bonus gear score. So if I have a weapon at plus 12 and I decide to enchant a chest armor to plus 10, I would have 4,350 gear score, plus the 180 gear score I got from the bonus on the chest by enchanting it, and now I have the 4,500 gear score requirement in order to enter the Shadow Altar. If I take a look at enchanting something like the gloves or the boots though, because they have way less gear score, it is going to be cheaper in order to enchant them, but it's going to give me a lot less bonus gear score. So if I take both my gloves and my boots to plus 10, I'm going to get a bonus of 34 gear score on the gloves and 34 gear score on the boots. So I'll get 68 bonus gear score, but it's still going to be quite a bit less than the chest because the gloves and the boots just have way less gear score in total. So what you want to end up doing on this answer, it's really going to depend a little bit differently for every single person depending on the exact gear score number that you're at. If your goal is simply to try to get to 4,500 gear score to enter the Shadow Altar, what you want to do is you want to take a look at different armor and different gear, how much gear score that it offers, the amount of bonus gear score that you're going to end up getting, enchanting it to a certain level, and also the cost that it is going to take in order to enchant that piece of gear. And you want to find out the cheapest and most efficient way to do so. I found a really good way to look at it is you can kind of get a pretty close 1-to-1 ratio with the onyx to gear score that it takes to enchant. So if we have this exquisite top here, it has 367 gear score. I'm actually in the wrong menu though, so let's go to enchant items and not change attributes. So it has 367 gear score, and it costs 360 onyx crystals. So you'll notice that it's a little bit less than a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of onyx crystals to gear score to enchant it. You also have to keep in mind the chaos onyx and the crystal fragments as well, but it is a simplified way of looking at it. Then we have the pants, which have a little bit less gear score, but still cost the same amount of onyx crystals. So technically, it's actually a little bit less efficient in order to enchant your pants than it is to enchant your top. They cost the same resources, but the top does have a little tiny bit less gear score, or a little bit more gear score. Then we have the hat, which has 241 gear score and takes 241 onyx crystals, so it has directly that 1-to-1 ratio, but it still takes 1 chaos onyx, so you have to factor that into the price as well. And finally, we have the gloves and the boots, which take the least amount of onyx crystals, but also because they end up using that chaos onyx, probably not really worth it. So when you take a look at the math behind the price of chaos onyx crystals and onyx crystals, it seems like as of right now, enhancing the items with the higher gear score is actually going to be the more efficient thing in order to do if you're looking to try to reach 4,500 gear score on a budget. Of course, you can go ahead and do this however you want though, especially if you want to end up enchanting your gear for other reasons, like if you want to run Dark Descent later or just get more defensive stats, you can do it how you want, but it's definitely important to take a look at the ratio of how much the ingredients are, what it's going to cost you, and how much gear score it's going to give you if your primary goal is to get geared up for chaos raids. So with that all being said, the weapon is definitely pretty important though, because just the difference between having, say, a plus 12 and a plus 13 weapon means that you don't have to end up enchanting any of your armor if you don't want to. If you have a plus 13 weapon, you should already have 4,650 gear score without actually having to enchant any of your armor if you don't have to. So generally speaking, the more unlucky you are with your weapon and the lower the enchantment level on your weapon is, the further away you're going to be from 4,500 gear score, and the more resources, Mesos, Onyx, and Chaos Onyx you're going to have to spend enchanting your armor to make up for it to try to get to 4,500 so that you can enter the Shadow Altar. So I threw a lot of information at you guys in this video, and I wish you guys all the best luck. If everyone here watching this video could have a plus 13 or higher weapon, I wish it could be like that. So if you're listening to this right now, I wish you the best of luck getting a plus 13 or higher weapon or whatever it is that you're going for. And if you guys enjoyed this video and the information from it was helpful, please consider leaving a like. If you guys enjoy the channel and you want more videos in the future, feel free to subscribe. And of course, because it is November, I did open up the November giveaway. Link is in the description. There's 4 ways to enter for a total of 5 tickets, the easiest of which being be a subscriber to the channel for 2 tickets. That's going to be for a $50 Nexon NX or $50 Steam gift card, and it'll end at the very end of November. So good luck to all of you guys entering that. And with this all being said, thank you once again for watching, everyone. Have a fantastic day. If you want some more Maplestory 2 videos, there should be a couple of them popping up on the screen right now. Feel free to check them out. If not, until next time, guys, this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.